Hey, all you beautiful people out there. Thank you for joining me on People Pursuing Greatness podcast, episode number 47 with Patrick Ryan, number 2. This episode's about accountability. This is kind of moving on our monthly series. We talked to my brother, Jedi Master, Confidant, about the finer details of how to stay moving, how to stay limber, how to stay healthy, and do this while we're in this pandemic, which is, it's shitty. It's weighing on all of us. I can attest to it firsthand. I'm sure all you guys can. I mean, there can't be somebody that's listening to this that hasn't been touched by this terrible thing. And unless you're one of those fancy countries where they have that magical voodoo spell that seems to keep COVID away. We talk about a lot of stuff, radical self-reliance in this episode, pizza monsters and Macgyver, investing in yourself and how habits maketh the man. I want you guys to really listen to this episode and, possibly explore picking up some new habits, hopefully some positive ones. No horse racing in your future, anything like that, no gambling games or anything like that. But I think you guys should definitely try to look into some of the advice that Pat gives, maybe some of the advice that my crazy ass gives, and just to give you something else to move on. I'll listen to somebody that gives me some advice about picking up a new book or just about some topic I've never messed with before. And that's what leads me to one of these fancy podcasts you guys get. So keep pursuing that greatness out there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Check out Pat at Aware Life. That's Aware_Life ABQ on Instagram. He's always dropping nuggets of gold. And then, of course, you can find us at PPG Podcast. That's on Instagram or Facebook. Appreciate y'all out there. Stay safe. Stay healthy. People pursuing greatness. 2, 1, and we're live with Patrick Ryan.
Hello.
How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. We're live here doing we're going to start doing more consistent episodes, kind of like a coach's corner. And we can probably come along with some more subjects in the future, but I think right now this is just the first run.
Yes,
we're going to
sir.
see what it's like. So what's new in your neck of the woods, brother?
Let's see. Not a whole heck of a lot since you and I did our podcast last. Just navigating the landscape of the world right now. You know what I mean? So yeah, just a lot of time and attention being dedicated towards my online platform, coaching people, helping support them all across the country at this point. So just doing that and then trying to make sure I'm taking care of my own well-being amongst the craziness.
Right, like we talked about in the last episode,
yeah, exactly.
Pretty heavily. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a trend in people changing their behavior, or I guess their goals and what they're doing across the country? Because like if you're seeing people in Florida compared to Kansas, or compared to what's a liberal state like Washington, are you seeing like people's behaviors being different, or the temperament being different?
That's
due to COVID, I guess, right?
That's an interesting question. It seems, at least from my experience, it seems like everything's been pretty uniform. Across the table. At least a lot of the clients I have been working with seem to be on a similar wavelength relative to how they're handling stuff. Because it's at least right now, it seems like the vast majority of the people I work with, where they're living, the gyms are closing or are on their way to closing. So they're kind of anticipating that and trying to make adjustments for accommodating that, that inevitability.
That big change. Cause that's people's well-being, to like we talked about in the last episode, it's part of your medicine cabinet. You go and close the gym.
Yeah.
So the emphasis is like switching, granted, with what we talked about in the last episode, and I'm going to quit saying that, but with what we talked about in the last episode, last one, a lot of people are working out from home and doing their stuff at home. So do you see like an even more demand shift for that? Like they're, give me these home workouts compared to the gym stuff? Yeah.
So, what's interesting, this is what I find really interesting relative to the state of the world. By all means, I don't wish this and what we're all going through on anybody, but from my professional perspective, it doesn't come as much of a surprise. So the reason I say that, so with my programming, out of the gate, I'm already coaching clients, or for through the exercise programming portion of things, I'm already putting together programs that are contingent upon malleability, flexibility, circumstances changing.
Right.
So, pre-COVID, that was, let's be honest, you're going to travel.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be going somewhere. You're going to go on vacation, et cetera, et cetera. So you need a workout program that's going to be tailored to that. So what I do is I put together several different workout options for a client each day. Some are gym-based, some are minimal equipment, like home-based type things.
Or like cardio, I'm sure.
Yeah, as well as I give a client an option like, if you've been wanting to get into riding your bike or go for a hike or something like that, and that doesn't fall within anything I put together, go do it.
Go do it, yeah.
Like, you're moving, it's okay. So with everything going on right now, for the most part, it's been a rather seamless transition, because the clients I work with that I'm doing their exercise programming, it's already kind of a seamless transition. It's like, okay, you've been working out at the gym. I've had you have these options to do gym-based workouts. Okay, the gym's no longer available, so now we're going to have to work out from home. I've already had programs put into place.
It's like plan B and C ready to go.
Yeah. So it's just like, okay, I don't work out at the gym now. Now I'm going to start working out at home.
Right.
So it's that portion of things has been pretty seamless, but that's just speaking on behalf of my own clients. It's a whole different ball game for a lot of other people, to where if your well-being is remaining contingent upon, much like we were talking about before, I think it's just so important to diversify what I called it, diversify your medicine cabinet, diversify your exercise portfolio. I call it, because you never know, especially now, it's kind of hitting the nail on the head. It's like, okay, I can't go to a gym, at least in New Mexico. We're about to have a stay at home for another 2 weeks for the end of November.
Monday.
So it's like, okay, have you really thought ahead as to sprinkling in, getting a few pieces of equipment for home, or have you picked up another hobby of doing something outside?
Yeah.
I
or
think
even home improvement and stuff, right? Like,
right. Yeah, exactly. Yep, I agree. So it's going to be very interesting, because I feel like what's going on is only highlighting bigger issues that have already been around prior to COVID being an issue.
And with that, do you see people getting creative with that? Like,
Yeah. So like I'll speak from my own personal experience. Whenever stuff was kind of hitting the fan back in March, and the intention had already been set quite a while ago, to where I had quit working out in a conventional commercial big box gym, and my intention was set quite a while ago. It's where, like, okay, how can I outfit my home as an extension to help be as conducive to my health as humanly possible?
Yeah.
So it's like, what I'm getting at is people have so many barriers to entry for exercise, right? We create these arbitrary preferences around, oh, well, I can only work out if I've got a gym. If it's a decent day outside.
If I've got my shoes, my specific
exactly.
shoes,
and it's
or whatever,
like, well, if we go down that path, we're never going to move.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
I like that logic, bro.
For me, it was just like, okay, I'm not going to be able to acquire all the equipment that I would ever want for my home, but it's going to come slowly over time. So like for me, I had turf installed in my side yard here for when it's now going into winter, but during the warmer months, we were working out on the turf. I bought a TRX a couple months later, and then I'm just slowly piecing together other pieces of equipment that I would ideally want.
Yeah.
More often than not, I'm having to wait a little bit longer because stuff is back ordered and in high
Especially
demand.
Right now, dude. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I have clients that they have a treadmill. Like, it's really interesting because we're living in a time where in my opinion, where other forms of exercise, i.e. home workouts, having a treadmill at home, having an elliptical, those were kind of, and online coaching included, those were kind of viewed as like less than ideal or second tier or even like third tier. Like going to the gym was the preferred option.
Comparatively.
And it was like the gold standard.
Got you.
You know what I mean?
So
it's
this
like,
is a money-driven perspective, right? Like it's commercialized to say you should come to the gym first. Don't buy that treadmill for the house.
Well, and I've always gotten that vibe that working out, just anything outside of the conventional workout space of going to a gym, lifting weights. So if you're working out at home, if you've got a treadmill and or elliptical, it's kind of subpar.
Yeah.
It's not on the same level, which
Right.
has always kind of perplexed me. And then you have something like what's going on right now, and it's like, oh, what's the new gold standard? Like, huh? Like, hold
Right.
on, I'll wait.
Right.
You know,
Home
and it's
workouts,
like, yeah,
bro.
home workouts, online coaching that used to be kind of scoffed at as no, that's not going to
Yeah.
be legitimate or anything like that. And then you have something like this going on, and people are losing their minds trying to figure out, oh, I need to start working out from home.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm open to online coaching, stuff like that. So it's really highlighting, in my opinion, a lot of areas where a lot of weaknesses in how we view exercise
Sure.
and how we view a healthy life. So with lots of clients, having treadmills that used to just serve as a clothes hanger, stuff like that,
Right.
they're now actually
exactly what you're
they're
talking
now
about.
actually using them because it's like, well, right now we don't have much of a choice.
Yeah.
You don't have a gym to go to, but I think ultimately this will be better. My hope is that it's been better for me, and I've seen it be a positive thing for a lot of my clients because it forces, I would say, radical self-reliance.
I like
where it's
that.
like I have to make sure if my health is a priority, I have to make sure that I am in as much control in making sure that my environment is conducive to a healthy life.
Right.
And in my opinion, that's your home, that's your apartment, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and then having the option available like that in this time right now keeps you accountable because even if you couldn't go outside, if you have a treadmill inside of your house or you made that decision, even if it was like, I don't know if the right word would be ingest, you know, but like if you're living in an area like, you know, like New York or something like that, where you've got high populations of people, your only option is going to be that treadmill. You know,
Right.
you can't even go outside. So I think that it's good to keep those options there. It's almost like the reverse concept of not having junk food around. You know, if you don't have it there, you don't have the opportunity to mess with
Exactly.
it. You have the carrots there instead. You're going to get hungry. You're going to eat them carrots. You know what I
Right.
mean? So if you're going to work out and the only thing you can do, like I have friends and family that live in New York, and it's interesting to me to hear how when they lock down, it's like lock down. Like they are completely not supposed to leave their house.
Right.
You know, and in Albuquerque, we're not quite to that point. I would imagine that's what the governor is expecting. But you know, we have a lot more outdoor life. Like I didn't know, I forgot how close you are to the trails back here to
Yeah.
be able to run. This is not something that everybody has, you know?
No.
So having that home gym, even just that little bit, you know, like I bought a treadmill a while back, didn't think I'd ever use it. And then crack, you turn it on because now you can't go to the gym. You can't even really go outside, you know, even in that, I would say like, in an area where you would think that people could just run without a mask, I'm seeing people do that. So I think the more germaphobe types, the people that are maybe immunosuppressed, things like that, to have that option on the table to be able to get on a treadmill is, you know, or anything like it, you know, dumbbells, even doing bands, you know what I mean? I mean, and I'm sure that's like really what your bag of tricks is to come up with what do you have? And then here's a plan to use it and basically improvise in a situation where the gym's closed. Cause that's huge, bro. Like for me, when I was doing a gym, when I was working out more than I was running, I had a cycle where I would go to the gym and do this. And I honestly don't think I would have a plan right now, or even, you know, I'd really have to reach to find the same tuning, you know what I mean? To be able to go home and do that same thing, you know, listed back, buys, chest, whatever, however people are doing it on their 3-4 days a week that they work out. So having a plan, like a backup like that is amazing.
Plan, man.
Yeah, it's smart, you know, but I think, do you think people are adhering to it more or less now that you're seeing people do this stuff more at home?
Well, and I can only speak for the clients I work with, right? So I see my clients adhering to it more.
Got you.
Because I don't want to sound like I want my client. I view this I say this in a very positive light. I think it's important for all of us to become, I posted this on social media, I can't remember, a while ago, where I believe we should all become gluttons for punishment. And what I mean by that is,
That's some Goggins stuff right there.
but it's like these less than preferable circumstances. So like right now, we're going through a global pandemic when it comes to staying on track with our exercise and our eating. We have to welcome that discomfort. I think it's important that we choose to welcome that discomfort, because it's an opportunity for learning. I think it's so important to have these less than preferable experiences, because if we come into them or go into them with an open mind as to, well, it was inevitable that I was going to deal with a less than preferable circumstance or a less than preferable experience at one time, one way, shape, or form. Right. So how can I do the best I can given what I got?
Sure.
Be as resilient as I can, where it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's an opportunity for people to kind of become their own modern day Macgyver when it comes to your exercise. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, crap. We can't go to, like, seriously, like, okay, we can't go to a gym.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Instead of like, well, I can't go to the gym. Oh, I'll just fucking sit here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just being like, okay, I feel like this is, and I know this is not the case relative. Hold on, you're about to knock over that.
Oh, shit.
Oh, move your backpack.
Oh, shit, Pat.
We might want to pause.
Yeah. It seems like we're live again. It seems like every time that I do something silly, I learn more about how to actually podcast. So we just had Morgan had a fun little thing. My blind ass almost knocked down one of Pat's badass paintings from the metal store. Right? It's from the metal store?
Yep. Shout out to Michael Whiteclaw. Got this big pizza monster in our dining room.
Yeah. We're gonna have pics of it, I'm sure. But I almost destroyed this modern day Monet. But we're all good now. And we started off. We were ending it off with Macgyver, a Macgyver of exercise. But
Macgyver-esque qualities.
Yeah,
because it's what I was really getting at is just less than preferable circumstances, I think, can really, really yield great opportunity, especially when it comes to your health, to where it's like, okay, if our health is a priority, if we're really wanting to try and figure out how we can help bridge the gap during less than exciting or less than preferable circumstances, I think
for real.
I think ultimately it can help demystify and destigmatize. How do I want to put this? Destigmatize less than, I keep going down to less than preferable, but just difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
So prior.
Like COVID sucks, but this is a way for you to end up kind of like working under that umbrella.
Well, and for us to show ourselves that it's actually possible to continue to maintain our health, if not improve it.
Right. So,
because it's not an uncommon thing prior to COVID or anything like that. We've got the holidays right around the corner. Okay, what's the thing with holidays? It's always synonymous with gaining weight. Gaining weight, losing progress, backsliding, falling off track, etc., etc.
No, Pat, I only had 2 plates. What do you mean?
Whereas why can't it be an opportunity to still experience the holidays and stay consistent with your exercise as best as you can relative to that season,
right?
As well as maybe improve your eating a little bit. It doesn't mean you've got to cut everything out completely. So what's going on with the pandemic is really no different. It's just on a larger scale, longer timeline, to where it's like, well, okay, so let's be honest. So, for the rest of this month, starting next week, 2 weeks of being closed down pretty heavily.
Right.
So are we just going to wait until the beginning of December to keep moving? Are we going to wait and hope that the gyms open back up? You know what I mean? So everybody creates these arbitrary, preferable circumstances that I think really continue to reinforce them staying inactive. It kind of it's like self-paralysis, to where I think by doing something and trying to view it as an opportunity and a series of discovery through, we'll call it the storm, you end up understanding and realizing, oh, there is no such thing as a perfect time. Right. I was able to make a little bit of progress during a really, really difficult time, a shitty time. Whether that's the pandemic or the holidays, when the holidays used to be really difficult and you'd regain weight, and it's like, okay, this can be a year-round thing. I can make changes and I can make adjustments whenever, and know that I am capable of doing it.
Right. Well, and I think that speaks a lot to even like athletes. Like I have a bad habit of doing that, where I'll train up for a thing and I'm really solid about what I eat. I'm solid about my working out. once I hit a spot, like let's say I get injured, I'll just fall off, man. And I can find ways to not do things all day, like excuses left and right, you know. And then you add on the pandemic and the right mindset, I mean, you could let the entire year go to waste, because we're at 9 months into this thing, you know, and that's a lot of time if you're gonna let any little setback. I mean, I got hurt in May, I think, and I couldn't really run for like a month, and I could go to the gym, but I kind of overdid it and hurt my shoulder. So I was like, man, and then the gym's closed, and I was like, fuck, what do I do? You know, I think that comes down to that though, is having a bag of tools, because ultimately what I was doing was I was like, well, I'll pull the weeds in my yard, you know, and I got that done, because you can't go anywhere, you know, you can't do anything. And it was like, well, do I want to cut them down with the machine or by hand? You know, I'm one of those crazy people that'll do it by hand. So I'm out there and I'm trying to like use proper form.
Right.
Like I literally was like, bent over at the hips, keep your back straight, pull the weeds, you know, and like I made it into a workout, and it was like 3 weekends deep, you know, and then I was able to start running a little bit more. And then once I added that back in, I got back into a push-up strategy, because before it's usually like, let me have a chest day at the gym. So I started doing like a push-up day, you know what I mean? Something simple. Let me try to do 60 in a day. You know, you can crack off 10 push-ups 6 different times in a day. You know, so that's the kind of stuff that I look at. And it came with just that if I didn't do that when I did come out of that valley and tried to peak again with training, or let me go do this crazy run or something like that, or even just a gnarly hike, I could get hurt, you know, if I've languished too long.
Right.
You know, I've always had slight issues in my IT band in my knee. So if I'm not moving, that sucker will get tight on me and it'll take me down. Do you get a lot of IT bands with your clients or anything like that? Like constant injuries that come up that you have to kind of like commonly work around?
The most common one I'm working through, and it's with clients that are significantly overweight, you know, you could say close to morbidly obese, is dealing with back issues and herniated discs, stuff like that. And it's interesting you because you bring this up, and it really piques my intrigue and curiosity relative to some of the people I've worked with, and you talking about you're talking about you being in touch and in tune with your own health history, right? So like you're talking about, well, this is how I used to handle stuff in the past.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're taking, and this is what's so important when it comes to people actually getting where they want to go. In my opinion, it's a matter of whether or not they're going to take a firm and compassionate inventory of how they would handle adversity in the past.
Sure. So essentially work around this adversity, which could be an injury or something like that.
Looking at things through a long-term perspective of acknowledging like, okay, I might not be where I want to be when it comes to handling this adversity. Like for instance, had a online client that has, I believe it's has a herniated disc, dealt with that, had it kind of flare back up this time last year. And during that point in time, and you talking about like dealing with an injury and having a hard time getting back on your feet and all that kind of stuff being really difficult. She had a flare up, and it really, really put her in a place of being depressed, not staying on top of her eating during that time, et cetera, et cetera. We worked through it. It wasn't the most preferable of experiences, but we worked through it, got back on our feet literally and figuratively. And then fast forward a year, and she has another issue. So, you know, issues with the back to where she can't walk, et cetera, et cetera. And it lasts for a couple, it was about 4 to 8 weeks. So, but what I'm getting at is she was able to take, in my opinion, compassionate inventory of like, okay, in the past when this happened, I just kind of said, screw it. And I stopped everything. You know, I didn't stay on top of my eating. I could have stretched a little bit and I didn't stretch. I didn't do the basic things that maybe would have helped create a more seamless transition back into the normal routine. So she already had that on the backlog when it came to this happening again.
Yeah.
So she started doing a little bit of the opposite. She paid a little bit closer attention to her eating, paid a little bit more closer attention to her self-care. Yeah, she regained maybe 5, 6, 7 pounds, but this is where really looking at things through a longer lens and a longer scope is really important, because she told me, a year ago when this happened, I gained a significant amount of weight. And this time around when it happened, I only gained like 5, 6, 7 pounds.
That's awesome.
That's a win.
Yeah.
Because we have to, in my experience, we have to look at things through a continuum. And this is an evolution of experience. So, okay, in the event, and I'm not saying she'll end up having a back injury again, but something will happen.
Right.
You get sick for a week, we'll just say you get sick. You get sick for a week or a couple weeks. And for a lot of people, that 2 weeks of being sick can turn into a month of inactivity, 2 months, it starts to snowball.
Right.
So
it's very hard to get back into shape.
These not fun experiences of getting sick and getting injured can serve as really, really helpful learning experiences, because I think it's important that we be honest and realistic with ourselves that some amount of sidelining is inevitable.
Yeah.
It's on its way right now. So if we are compassionate through whatever terrible or not fun experience we're having and see it as a learning opportunity as to, okay, when this happens again, I'm going to take inventory and I'm going to take note as to what I can maybe do different next time. And that's what we were doing, because she and I had just started working together a year ago. Yeah, so she and I were working together a year ago when this injury had first happened, and we're working through a continuum. We're taking inventory of like, okay, yes, this may have led to a month or 2 months of inactivity, but how can we just work on what notes can we take for future you?
Right. And that difference of last time I got hurt, I gained 10, but this time maybe I only gained 5 is actually a huge win, because that makes you continue.
And I paid closer attention to my eating. I got a stretching routine in. I stayed on top of my PT. These things are wins, because then you're starting to build on positive habits that'll help you in the future whenever you're met with another injury, a global pandemic, et cetera. That way you're more prepared. And I feel like that's no different with the exercise portion of things, where it's like, well, it's just really interesting. If you don't have a lot of equipment, that's okay. It's a matter of really figuring out and leveraging your support around you, whether it's in person or online. What can you do with what you have? And
then with that, what do you do to keep somebody accountable for that? Like, what are you trying to instill in them? Like, I get the idea of the tools and things like that, but do you have people take into account the things that they're doing to detract from those goals, like tracking time watching TV, like binge watching? Or is that something that you would coach in order to get somebody to understand that may be what you're leaning on more so than trying to get active? Like, let's say you get hurt, and then it's like, well, you check in, well, coach, mm-hmm. I've actually been, I watched the whole season of, the Orville or whatever. And, I was able to do that because, my aching leg or whatever, you know what I mean? Compared to, I did switch over to the stretching. So what do you do I guess what I'm asking is what would be a tip to keep somebody, they have to be accountable, but also be accountable with being aware that, they may be coming off of an injury or their gym is closed and they can't really be accountable because the way that they would do it in the past was all the gym. Do you do like a diary? Do you have them put, some sort of like running note, like in a phone or something like that? Or is it through you? What do you?
So you're asking relative to the clients I work with right now?
Yeah, I would say that, but then also for yourself, because I know that you've trained in different ways before. So, when you were switching off from bodybuilding, and you're going into the way you are now, what keeps you accountable? Do you write that down? Is it something that you keep in the back of your mind? I mean, you're like a healthcare guy, so of course, but.
So first, relative to my clients, it's already built into the programming. So I'm a firm believer that it's not a meal program. It's not an exercise program. It's nothing like that that's going to get you into better health. It's communication. Okay. So I'm very heavy on communication because a meal program should not define a person. An exercise program can't define the in-depth, multifaceted intricacies that make us the human beings we are. Otherwise, it would be so easy plug and play. Everybody would be like, oh, I got a meal program or a workout program.
Let me upload Aware 3.0.
Sure. So it's very communication based in that I have built into the program. So the vast majority of my clients, I'm communicating with them daily. So I'm already, as their coach and as their advocate for their health, I'm already on the pulse of what's going on in their life.
So you keep track of this?
Yeah.
Really?
Well,
okay.
We collectively keep track of this. So I like to view kind of stemming from the communication piece, anybody's health and journey of an improved health is a storytelling experience. And that's why I fall back on the communication portion of things, because
I like that.
In order for me or any coach, in my opinion, to actually help complement somebody and help them navigate their life, you need to tell me your story.
Right.
You need to tell me what's going on.
And be honest.
But I understand that not everybody's going to be as open to that right off the bat. I have a client that I've worked with for years, and just over the past probably year and a half, he's just started opening up and being more expressive about what's going on in his life. So it's going to be different for everybody. Yeah. But in order for me to really help you in some way, shape, or form, you've got to be willing to just kind of tell me what's going on in your life.
Right.
And that sometimes that includes, yeah, I haven't done jack squat for the last 3 weeks, and I've been watched this TV show, and that's where the self-compassion piece comes in, where it's like, it's just information. I'm not here to judge you over it. Like, okay, this happened, and then inquiring with the client, well, what do you feel you would want to do better? It's not my job to come in, because I've tried this approach where it's like, okay, you need to now change A, B, C, and D. Right. No, the discovery has to come from the client. They have to have the epiphany on their own, where it's like, well, yeah, this didn't really help me get where I want to go. Next time I can work on moving, getting a couple workouts in during the week, or get in, since we're at home the majority of the time right now, get on the treadmill while I watch the TV show. Right, and then we collectively as a team work through that continuum together. As for just, you were also asking just relative to just kind of like the average person. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, my wife has tried to use these books that essentially every day you are journaling different aspects of your life, like things that you're grateful for, things that you have done today. There's a lot of these, and those types of journals, and you've put one on your social media before, I think are helpful to a lot of people. But a guy like me, I don't really I'm very much a product of the digital age. I like to put stuff digital, but even then I don't have like a running list of what's going on. Honestly, now it's down to like, I'll have a day to do, an exercise and a day to rest, a day to do an exercise and a day to rest. And that's just come from, if I don't do those things, then when I go to do something like a running race, I will die and fall apart because your body is not trained for that. So if I don't have something like that coming up, then it's like, what is keeping somebody that's not training for races going? And you would deal with these people more often than I would, in terms of somebody trying to like actually communicate that, you know what I mean? Because people don't come to me and ask me for a lot of advice, because if you're not athletic, sometimes it's intimidating. And we've talked about that before, to ask people about things like that. But then some people are like, well, how do you have the energy to do this, is what I'm asked all the time. And, I try to like have that leveling conversation. We're the same human, bro. Like, no matter if you're a fat guy or not, you could run a marathon. If you're a lazy person, you could absolutely run a marathon. The difference is that I hold myself to this accountability. It's a little sadistic, I think, in some cases. And that's what, I mean, people that bodybuild, they're a little sadistic because they have to eat and they have to lift the way that they do. Some people are sadistic in the way that they go to work and they work 80 hours a week, and the way that they can drive themselves. Some people are sadistic for running. But where does the accountability come in when you're trying to reach a goal? And that's not the thing that you're sadistic about, and to me, it's just ingrained, it's built in, but that's one thing that when I read books, when I listen to podcasts, I'm always curious about what drives people. What's that accountability that they're going through to push them in this one direction? Like, what drives Pat to build this online, empire, which is built on a heart, I mean, you just do good things, So as silly as it is, I may be speaking to a broader thing than what we're trying to reach into with exercise, but it does speak to a bigger part of life, accountability across the board. If you want to be a good dad, you have to be accountable to be a good dad. If you want to be a good employee, you have to be accountable to be a good employee. When it comes to your own health, how often are you seeing people make that as important as getting to their job or being a father, you know what I mean? Or being a mother, being a, Right. So that was kind of what I was speaking to with that. And I think you answered that great, because I was, like we talk about it all the time, what motivates people. And you essentially try to turn the ship towards being motivated as a lifestyle of movement and eating good, and you're a practitioner of this. So that's why I think it's interesting to get your perspective on that, where, I really myself, and just to frame it, I did this marathon this last Saturday, and was very much accountable for the last 5 weeks. I took in a lot of what you've told me. You're one of 3 people in my life that are like my coach, like legitimately, you know what I mean? Even if we don't necessarily work together, I draft off a lot of the stuff that you pull in. You know, you want to be around the 5 smarter people than you in the room, right? You're the 6 or whatever. These other 2 guys that I work with are running coaches, and they were basically in my shit constantly. You know, the night before, hey, we're ready to get up at 5:30 tomorrow to go run. We're going to do tempo workout. We're going to do yada, yada. Rewind 6 years ago when I did my marathon in 2014, I still smoked a few cigars here and there. I was trying to bodybuild for no reason other than I thought if I was lifting as much as I could and running as much as I could, my marathon would be amazing, right? I bought GNC's biggest box of supplement stuff. I took this stuff. I was breaking out, but I was like gaining weight. I was getting big boobs. I thought I was doing good. I could do all these pull-ups, but I didn't gear that, and I wasn't accountable for the one thing I was training for, which was a running race. And coming close to it, I ran 2 half marathons, which is half the distance. I thought, cool, I'm ready. So in the last month, I was not peaking my training. I was actually backing off, getting comfortable with it. And when I ran that marathon, I fell apart. I fell the fuck apart. And I've talked about it a lot on the podcast, but that day took 6 months for me to recover from that. Because it was so hard and I was not accountable, and my body was now feeling the full brunt of that. You know what I mean? This is an extreme case, right? Comparatively to what I just talked about, in terms of like life accountability and all that. But I ran last Saturday, and when I took it serious and when I applied a lot of life's lessons that I've learned in the last 6 years, athletic, yes, but also, you know, you got to keep your mind straight to be able to handle something like that. 2 days later, I was able to run 4 or 5 miles after this race that I just did. And now I'm 32. You know what I mean? I'm older. I should have been more destroyed. I wasn't. And I felt that, you know, in terms of the theme of accountability, I just thought that was, you know, something I wanted to bring up, because that to me was something that I took super serious for those last 5 weeks. Honestly, I wasn't running hard except for those 5 weeks, and then you taper for 1 week. So essentially 6 weeks. And man, I was fucking surprised. Like I got done and I was like drinking a beer and I'm like talking to people. And I remember the first time I was like crying. I've never had so much fucking pain in my legs, and it didn't subside for like a couple weeks. And then I still couldn't really run for like a few months. And, yeah, I'm thinking of going 10 miles tomorrow, and tomorrow would have been 8 days, you know, so sorry to make that story long.
Oh, you're cool.
Yeah. But I was just trying to think of a good example of accountability, and maybe a bit of an extreme scenario, but here recently, you know, especially during the pandemic, if I hadn't focused on that and I had allowed myself to languish and I'd made excuses for things, I could have been very much in that same situation, especially being 32 now. And, you know, I would say that my health is better. But I think that it was just more of the overall, you know, things and my tools and things like that, which are still growing, you know, my medicine cabinet. And you guys get to catch the last episode, talk about the medicine cabinet, but essentially just, you know, having things that make your life better. So, you know, I still miss out on a lot of shit. I wish I read more. I wish I stretched more. I wish I did more yoga. You know, I try to drink enough water, all that bullshit, you know, again, be a good dad, be a good husband, you know, but I think, accountability when it comes to reaching a goal, you know, if somebody says I want to be in better shape, and then you start fucking around with Netflix all the time, you know, I don't know. So for anybody listening that's struggling with that, that was one of the things I wanted to highlight is, you know, I've languished in the past. Pat has done it as well. But, you know, accountability can be many different things, I guess, you know.
I completely agree. So touching on the point of you telling your story relative to the first time you had done a marathon to present day when you had done your second, it just speaks to, it's a guided trial and error, right? Yeah. You had that first marathon. It wasn't ideal, but you did it. But there was a lot of feedback and information that was being given to you from your body, how you felt, how long it took to recover, all that kind of stuff was telling you a lot. And because it's easy to misinterpret that information as your body telling you, hey, don't ever do that again. Yeah. It may be saying, hey, if you could, don't ever do that again that way again. But it's not saying don't ever do that the full marathon.
Right. This isn't real life or death. You're just playing now.
So on, man. It's an opportunity to view that as, how can I do this just a little bit better next time around? And it sounds like you refined that approach. You went through that guided trial and error. You were present with what adjustments needed to be made. And therefore you had this next marathon you ran. And it's, like you said, just in a day or so, you're going to be able to go run another 10 miles. Yeah. And, you know, tying into the accountability piece, this is where I find things really interesting, and I enjoy navigating the space with clients and people who are interested in working with me or just getting the ball rolling on their own health, is quite literally reframing why is it that we live in a world that taking care of your health, taking care of your well-being, whether that's getting more flexible, losing weight, being able to, like, whatever it might be, improving your health in any way, shape, or form. Why on God's green earth is that synonymous with taking away from other aspects of your life?
Right.
That
Detracting.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah,
it doesn't. When we really take the time to think about it, it's like, hold on. Especially with my specialty working with dads. So it's like, hold on, wait a minute. You are telling me that by losing weight, by paying a closer attention to what you eat, taking an inventory of how you exercise, et cetera, you are telling me that you firmly believe that somehow that's going to make you a worse dad.
Right. Right. So this is a legitimate type of conversation.
Well, this is a cultural problem.
Sure. Okay.
So that somehow, like you said, people being so dedicated to your work, I would argue, whether male, female, whatever, I would argue the fact that you're less healthy is the reason why you're making less money.
Right.
You could make more money if you were healthier, because you would be able to put. It's in my professional opinion, it's quality, not quantity.
Sure.
So why can't you just work? And this is easier said than done. We're always working through a continuum here, but it's a matter of, okay, if you're healthier and if you're a better state of mind, you are going to put forth a more quality 8 hours of work, as opposed to the 8 hours of work that you're currently doing in a lower, and from what I would like to view, a lower frequency of vibration and health.
Gotcha.
You're not operating at full magnitude. So same with being a good partner, same with being a good parent, a brother, a sister, a son, a daughter. And that's what just has always perplexed me, is like, hold on a minute. You're telling me that doing these things that we know deep down, if we were to do them, our life would be immeasurably better.
Right.
But we live within a society and we have this cultural mental framework around, oh, this is going to take away from these things. No, it's going to make you even more present. It's going to make you even more involved, and it's going to allow you to put an even better foot forward. Like, I would argue the fact that you're as involved and in touch with your health makes you a better podcaster.
Right.
It does. It makes you a better podcaster, makes you a better friend, makes you a better runner, makes you a better everything, because you're able to put your full self forward into whatever your craft might be.
Right.
So yeah,
I like that.
That's definitely something that I navigate with a lot of people, and it's been a huge epiphany for me in the last year, to where it's like, this can you see how this doesn't make a lot of sense?
Yeah.
Taking the time to invest in yourself. We live in a world that has kind of told us that, oh no, you need to put that on the back burner. You need to make money first,
right,
and figure out how to make a lot of money first,
right,
before taking care of your health. It's like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. You have to incur so much debt in order to fill in a void, that you have to work in order to keep that debt going, and all you're doing is working and paying debt.
Right.
And I see a lot of people do that. A lot of people want the really nice car, but they get out of the car and they're 100 pounds overweight, and it's like,
it's hard to get in the car. It's hard to get out of the car. Yeah. So what's the point of having the car?
Right. And you toast that all that mileage and that, $50,000 you spent on that nice car, purely working to pay off the car. Right.
It makes me think about you making, and I know everybody's circumstances are different, so I will definitely preface the disclaimer here, but This is what I really think about heavily, and why I've made the conscious decision, why I and others have made the conscious decision to, I'm just always going to put health first. I don't care if it makes me poor. Yeah. Like, as long as I'm healthy, that's all that really matters. And by extension,
say it again, Pat. God damn it, I like that shit.
I don't care if I go poor. I don't care if I am homeless. At least I will know I have prioritized my health.
Hell yes.
I have found that seems, as crazy as it sounds, that seems to go against the grain of how we've been raised to live.
Right.
And This ties into that diversification of your medicine cabinet, to where it's like, okay, we talked about outfitting your home, which is a very, very smart move. But by extension, outside of the confines of your home, and this is just my opinion and preference here, is because I feel we all need more than that of our home. So it's like, well, what kind of community are you living in? What kind of city are you living in?
Right.
What kind of state are you living in? Is it a community? Is it a city? Is it a state that helps support your health? Like what you're talking about. I can walk out my back door and go be right at the base of the mountain to walk around.
Right.
So if I
run, Pat, run.
But that's those are the thoughts that go through my head moving on into the future, to where it's a very frightening thing for me. I would like to say it's kind of a nightmare of, I never want my life to get to the point to where I'm living a healthy life, but say a job opportunity arises, it's in a different part of the country, that the access to a healthy lifestyle is significantly less. So
right.
My health would actually be taking a significant hit in order for me to make more money.
Right.
And I don't know how I feel about that.
Right.
That makes me very, very uncomfortable.
Can I throw you a curveball?
Sure.
This is a tangent here. We're going to come right back. All right. What if your job is like crab boating, and it's a good workout, but it could kill you, but you could also make good money? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I'm throwing them all three angles at you, Pat. Come back with me now.
Well, it's dependent on the person. Like, I understand everybody's circumstances are going to be different. But I think this, shout out to Gary V. He's big on self-awareness.
Yeah.
So it's like, for me,
you're going to fucking die. I love that
like,
shit. It's my favorite Gary V quote.
But it's like, for each individual, I think as long as you're going, because I understand I'm to an extreme end of the spectrum of being very health-centered. My health will determine my decision-making, bar none, end of story. And a lot of that has to do with seeing loved ones, family members make decisions in a different way.
Yeah.
That it just doesn't jive with
like, I'm going to make 200,000, but I'm going to be like in, like, you know, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but like in South Texas or someplace maybe down south where there's not as many sidewalks and running clubs and, you know, those types of areas, or I guess the Bible Belt, because that's an area where, you know, you've got these higher obesity rates, and you've got, you know, higher things like that. If I'm going to take a job in Alabama or something like that, you know, and again, nothing against Alabama. There's some very fit people that come out of Alabama. But when you talk about statistically speaking, if I'm going to take a $200,000 a year job and go there, but my health's going to start to fall off because I'm working 80 hours a week, you know, and it's like, what's the trade-off there? I mean, that totally makes sense.
Well,
dude.
And that's where my mind, again, I feel like I'm very self-aware when it comes to my health, and I understand everybody's going to be different. So I'm not going to try and impose and demand that people live that. I'm just trying to create a conversation. But in my personal opinion, it's like, no, my health is worth more than $200,000 a year. Sure. It's worth it's worth more than $1 million a year. I'm not gonna do it.
Do you ever look into those statistics of what the bills are for people that have worse health or don't keep up with their health? You know,
it's substantial
comparatively to like even a gym membership. You know, because there's that joke about how people will have the gym membership but never go. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, well.
It's interesting you bring this up. It reminds me of a conversation I had with a gal years ago where it's really interesting, and I don't think we take enough time to think about. This is where I just go to a place of reframing. Okay, when you're and destigmatizing and letting go of this whole notion of pretty much just self-care as a whole, paying for a therapist, paying for a massage, going and paying for a chiropractor, paying more for good groceries,
right.
Paying for a gym membership, paying for a personal trainer.
Right.
Those aren't costing you anything. Those are investments in yourself.
I like
that is 100% what that is.
Yeah.
But it's because otherwise we just stay in this place of being like, oh, that's what I'm getting at. Like, oh, this is taking away from me. No, you are paying back into yourself. Right. So I would encourage you in whatever way that you can, find a way to budget in some money for some better quality groceries, a massage, take it out of your dining out budget, whatever it might be.
Better quality shoes.
Yes. Oh, 100%. That shout out heart and soul.
Yeah.
I will. You know what I'm talking about. Like instead, because if we're constantly in this space of, oh man, what is this costing me? It's gonna somehow make things more difficult for me financially. It's like, no, this is an investment in you. Yeah. This is an investment in your health.
Can I go so far as to say, I'm in a few running groups. There was a doctor that got onto one of our running groups and did a live, and he was talking about how legitimately, and you guys know I'm fucking biased with the running thing, but he was like running, and I want to say that this speaks higher to like just working out cardio, but you're less likely to get as bad of a situation if you were to get, God forbid, COVID, because you've actually worked out on that, so much so that you just have a higher, VO2 max. You have a higher, your whole body is just healthier overall if you have done those things. And then God forbid something like that happened to you, you would actually be in a better place. But that ends up costing you less, even if it's just the fact that you don't have to like deal with that sickness the same way that somebody else would, where maybe they'd have to go all the way to the hospital, all the way to thousands of dollars worth of bills because you were bedridden, because, you got nailed by, maybe that's a little bit of I went a little dark there with COVID. I'm sorry. But you know what I'm saying? Like we were trying to say, essentially, the more you take care of yourself, because like with my running, if, it's hard for me to go to my wife and say, I need to spend $170 on this pair of shoes 3 months after I just spent $170 on this other pair of shoes, because I've burned them up, but that gets me outside. I haven't been to the doctor for any sickness in a very long time. Knock on wood, y'all heard that shit. And then beyond that, like, I just don't, I don't fuck around with people that are stagnant. Also, because I'm in these areas where people are constantly running. Like I go hang out with the dude at like 5 o'clock in the morning, like 3 days a week. And we're not like talking, like we're talking while we're huffing air and running, up in the mountains and shit like that. But all of that reduces any of the bad times, that I have. It's simple of a thing. I go camping and I'm standing around a campfire for 2 days and you're inhaling that shit. And you know how you can feel that on your lungs. My apparatus is when I get home, cool, I can go for a run the next day. I cough all that shit up. You know what I mean? If I'm around some asshole that smokes cigarettes, we've all been around that asshole. And if you're that asshole, you're that asshole. So don't forget that I said that. I'm just being honest. But some guy that has to smoke, you go to like a break area or something and there's that one asshole. He's like, I'm over here. It's like, yeah, bro, it's blowing in our face. Thank you. We all see you, and so I think even just that little bit of motion of like knowing that I'm going to go right into my workout routine or this plan B or C that Pat came up with for working out at home, I'm gonna be able to knock that shit out of my lungs. With beer, I like to drink beer. Friday night, I drink more than I should have like a 6-pack with the boys or something. I run the next day. I can smell that shit coming out of me. Take that for what you will, right? What does that mean? But in my opinion, that's me trying to at least upend some of the bad habit that I'm doing. You're on Netflix for Saturday, do some shit all day Sunday, that kind of a thing, So even if that's minimal compared to what we're trying to say in the greater scheme of things, don't take the good job if you can't keep your health in mind. And maybe you're not health minded like Pat would be more so than me, but even me, I'm health minded, but I mean, fuck, like taking advantage of just the little scenarios where you can move is going to benefit you, moving forward. And that's always the theme whenever you and I get on the mic, like movement equals life. Like you can't make that equation change at all. I mean, that's the way it's got to go. But, I don't know. I tangented a bit there, bro.
No, you're good. But it speaks to, it continues to make me think of, because I always continue to go to a place of, we just have to adopt a long-term view. And I'm only speaking from experience. Everybody's lives might be different, but life seems to only become more and more difficult as I get older.
Agreed, bro.
So what kind of practice have I adopted and have I integrated that is continuing to help prepare me for it? So what I'm getting at is, you saying the guy or the doc that was doing his live talking about, well, the way I kind of see it with exercise, not only on a physical, on a physiological, but as well as a mental and spiritual level, through consistent exercise, you're putting your body, your mind, your spirit through acute levels of trauma. That's just what's happening.
Sure.
It's uncomfortable. You're running. It's painful. You're feeling the physical pain, and then you're having this dialogue internally as to like, oh my God, this hurts, and how are we going to interpret that pain, et cetera, to get us through the last half of our half marathon, or the last half mile of our hike, or the last quarter mile of our walk that we are trying to improve upon. And we're creating reference points to go back to. And we're creating resiliency. There's a reason why people who exercise consistently have a much higher pain threshold. You're able to get through much tougher stuff in life compared to others who have not been exercising.
I can agree with that sentiment.
And looking at it through a longer term lens, to where it's like, yeah, generally speaking, with people who are healthier and exercise more, all that kind of stuff, you're just going to recover from trauma quicker. Why? Because you've been practicing it.
Right.
You will go run, you get sore. The best principle that I ever learned while I was in school at UNM was, shout out to Len Kravitz. I love you, man.
Like Lenny Kravitz?
Yep. His name's Len awesome, Kravitz. Lenny Kravitz. He's the man when it comes to exercise physiology. Okay. The body will adapt to loads placed upon it.
Sure.
So the way that I view it is, and I think this speaks, I don't know that people really think about things this way, but it's always fascinated me, because in one way, shape, or form, your body is showing you just how resilient it is.
Sure.
So if you're in really poor health, we'll just take an extreme example. You're maybe 200, 250. It's going to be based on the individual, but say 250, 300. Like, for instance, my girlfriend or my fiance likes watching my 600-pound life.
Right.
And the biggest takeaway for me is like, that's how resilient your body is.
To be able to handle that extreme.
Yeah. Your body's willing to do everything it can to keep you alive in what is a very, very, very poor state of health.
Right.
So you absolutely cannot tell me that your body, your mind, and your spirit is not capable of withstanding and maintaining the discomfort that comes with living a healthy life.
A workout routine.
Right. So if it can exist in the most negative of circumstances, and being overweight, unhealthy, not eating well, it damn sure can exist when it comes to living a healthy life. And that's awesome, man. That's one thing that's just always perplexed me. It's like your body, and I just don't think people are paying attention to that. It's like, hold on a minute. You're not in the best state of health, but your body is literally doing so much work to keep you alive.
Right.
Like, it's a very resilient thing.
Right.
So it's very possible to go for that extra walk. It's very possible to go on that hike, whatever it might be for the individual. And that's just something that's always blown me away. And when it comes to, if you are consistent with your exercise and improving your health, you are making yourself a more resilient organism to change. You're making yourself a more resilient organism to disease, to help recover from just trauma.
Right.
In some way, shape, or form.
And I feel like you're saying essentially that their hand in hand is mental and physical. Because I mean, that goes along with it. I'll tell you what, like, even in that, man, I'm going to keep going back to this run, but I swear I'll leave it alone eventually. But the end of that marathon, bro, last Saturday, I was telling Pat, this was a trail marathon, and it's out in the desert here in New Mexico. So it's up near Cuba. Shout out Dead Man's Peak. So went out there, and the beginning of that race was so up and down. My ass had so much lactic acid, just like my glute, like my actual muscles. I was so swollen. By the time I hit like the 9-mile aid station, I was in pain, and I was like, I forgot how hard it is to like go at race pace. And when they say race pace, like as fast as you can go, basically, maybe a little bit more in terms of you've ever trained, because you're giving it everything you got for this race. Well, I'm trying to run up and down these, big climbs, these big drops, a little bit of rock climbing here and there. It's not really like, rock climbing, but some going. Then it gets further, and I'm like, fuck, I'm getting tired, more tired. And then I got to another aid station, and I see this big mesa in front of me. And it was, and I was telling you guys about this before we started the podcast, but I just remember thinking to myself, once I hit 20 miles, I've never gone further than that since 6 years ago. And that was the only other time that I had gone that far. And I run a lot, but when you start packing on that many more miles to your maximum distance, you're talking about injury. And all I could think about was all the little pains that I felt up to that point. But then, like you said, I remembered, I thought adaptations, man, like I know that I can handle the load. I just need to think about maybe going slower. So I pulled it back, you know, and when I hit the mesa and climbed up this mesa, which is basically just kind of a flat wall type deal, but, get on the top of it and it was just kind of smooth from there. I was thinking this motherfucker's going to fall apart. But the whole time that I was going, my brain kept telling me I can keep going, but I did not have confidence in my body. I swear to you, I kept thinking to myself, how am I going to call my wife and tell her that I'm fucking dead out here?
Well, but it's so first are you open to me correcting you on something?
Of course.
Quick? Okay. So there's this common, it's really interesting how old, outdated science can last a long, long time and people don't know. So the whole lactic acid burn is not lactic acid.
Well, what is the,
so it's excess hydrogen ion. I'm not going to go too down the rabbit hole, but it's due to excess hydrogen ions, not irons, ions, through the muscular contraction process. Excess hydrogen ions are a byproduct of that, and that's what creates the burn in your muscle. So buildup of lactic acid, that's old, outdated science. Throw it in the trash and burn
hydrogen ions.
Yes.
I like that. Okay.
But it's really interesting you bringing the whole piece up around going on the run, it being really difficult, and jokingly talking about the possibility of dying. Well, it's because it's something I think about a lot when I go out and I do stuff on my own.
Okay.
And it's what draws me. You talk about earlier, you know, what can people do to hold themselves accountable with their health?
Yeah.
And it's going to be different for everybody. And that's why I came to the place of like, okay, if making money and having a better job, et cetera, is that focal point, or being a better parent, your health still needs to be the cornerstone of that. Because if you're in better health, you're going to be a better employee. I would argue you're going to make better money. You're going to be a better father, parent, et cetera, that kind of thing.
Chain reaction down the line.
Right, exactly. So for me, it's like it's solely rooted in I want to be able to interact and engage with the earth for as long as possible, for as in depth of a period of time as possible whenever I'm doing it. I don't want to worry about whether or not I'm physically, mentally, spiritually capable of doing it. But I also know that, okay, as I venture deeper and deeper and deeper into pushing that, you know what? I'd rather die doing that. And I'd rather die in the process of experiencing that and experiencing that accountability that I put myself through than dying of poor health,
or
dying in a car wreck,
vicariously through a TV.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like there are multiple ways to die, and don't get me wrong, like dying out in the wild doesn't sound like the most fun thing on the face of the planet, but I also kind of view it as what an organic way to go out.
Yeah.
Like I'm a wild animal, no different than a coyote or a wolf is.
Right.
And okay, I'm going into these things, and I get that feeling from you to where it's like, yeah, it may not be fun, but it's like you're dying on your own terms. Right. And you're dying doing something you enjoy.
And there's almost something romantic about that, you know, because to me, I was getting emotional while I was running. I didn't even tell my wife about this, but I was getting a little emotional while I was running, because when you're like that far in and you've pushed past this place that you thought you were going to run into a wall or you were going to die, you know, I've worked very hard to get that far, you know, like a lot of hours of time that's not compensated by money. There's no other reason there except for pure willpower. And when I was getting into those spots where I was thinking to myself, another mile just went by, like it actually was making me like when I was running, because I was like, I'm doing it. I'm fucking doing it. And it was doing things for me that were continuing to pipe me along. I wanted to quit like 100 times. I swear to God, going into an arroyo down one side and just having to power back up the other side on the trail, there was enough there and gravity pushing on me to say, fuck it. Right. Like I was that close to doing it, but it was like, I'm a mile away from, or I saw somebody in front of me. Oh, talk about happy day. Mm-hmm. I seen this guy in front of me, and I hadn't seen anybody for an hour.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, I'm reeling you in, fella, you know, and he happened to be very fast. So that guy I didn't catch, but there was a young lady that we ran into later on, and just taking her down and essentially just passing her, right? Because she's starting to break down. She's at the end. You could tell she was beat up, you know, and you run by. as much as I was that close to death, I was like, I'm actually doing it though. Like you have it in your mind for so long, and to pass that, it's like, it made me emotional, you know, and to take advantage of that, that scenario to push me forward. It's almost like your small achievements you talk about with your clients. They get one of those little 10 pounds difference compared to 5 pounds difference when this client that you talked about had flare-ups, you know, that as much as it seems like I'm on an extreme end, it really was that simple to me. Like I made that little bit of change for myself and it meant the fucking world, you know, and it was enough to keep me moving, whether in that great time of need or in a time where it's like, she might want to give up and just back out of the whole health ordeal on, you know, because of the pandemic and the injury and all the things that pile up on that. And for me, I wanted to do it again as soon as I was there, you know, but I think that's what feeds it is those little things. Cause like you said, she's game to, I'm sure she's still in your program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
she lost 51 pounds in a year.
Congratulations. If you're listening, I'm sure you're going to, congratulations. That's amazing. I haven't had huge weight swings in a long time, but when I do big distances and I don't die, that's what really means a lot to me. Like when I can do them and like hang out with the kids at the Walmart afterwards, you know, I'm like, I'm not too old to be able to run and also go do, you know, normal life, you know, even when I was injured, the same story. What do you got going on in the future, Pat? Are you going to compete with anything? I know that you talked about a while back, you were thinking about maybe doing something. You got anything in the works?
So you're saying competitively?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really interesting. I was talking to Megan and my buddy Dan about this, and we'll see. I'm not in any rush, but I thoroughly love mountain biking.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy it. And it helps me do what I was talking about earlier, be more engaged and more in tune and interactive with the earth. So I've come to find I really love mountain biking. I like hiking. I'm going to dabble with some cross-country skiing this winter, if possible.
Do they call that Nordic skiing? Is there a difference?
They may. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I've only cross-country skied once, and that was on a groomed trail, and that was it. But because for at least at this point in time, I don't want my health and I don't want mainly my interaction with the earth to be contingent upon good weather. Right. 6 months out of the year, it's warm. 9 months out of the year, it's warm. And then when it's cold in the winter, I don't do it. Right. I want to keep moving. So that's on the horizon. I can see cross-country skiing being something really fun that keeps me active, that keeps me working hard. But the last year, no, it's been probably the last couple of years now, I've grown into a place that I felt like I had an intention of in experiencing, which was just more outdoor related activity. Yeah. And I've really just, especially with mountain biking, I've really enjoyed being in tune, and I'm not going super nuanced, but just being in tune with my eating enough to where it's like, okay, if I'm going to do a ride, I need to make sure that I'm eating relatively well before the ride. That way, when the ride comes around, I'm able to go. Yeah. And I'm able to push myself hard. And continue to develop my skill level. So like,
that's interesting. Fueling for mountain biking, dude. That's a whole. I bet that we could do a whole fucking podcast.
Yeah, but I'm barely at the beginning, and I don't know how far down the rabbit hole I'll go. Yeah. But
any racing in the future? You think?
Well, that's what possibly. I don't know. Like it's just I've enjoyed it, and I feel like for the first time since, because I played high school sports and all that kind of stuff, primarily baseball. And that season has left. I'm not as big into conventional sports as I used to be. Yeah. And this is the first time with hiking, but primarily mountain biking right now, where I feel like I've always been pretty athletic. Yeah. And I feel like this is now that opportunity for me to not allow my athleticism to remain dormant. Sure. To where it's like, oh, I played baseball when I was in high school, and that was kind of it. And you know,
what do you do with that as an adult?
Yeah. So it's like, I love it, dude. You're in your own self-powered race car, right? In my opinion.
And you can cover distances in a way that running can't, and you can't really do other things on a lot of those types of trails. So it's really those two forms, or I guess equestrian. Mm-hmm. But when I've been dabbling as well in mountain biking, not as much, I don't think, but with the fact that I have that mountain bike and I can go farther with it, because it's not like a shitty, no offense, Walmart, but like a shitty Walmart. But you know, right. I can actually like carry gear, and it's not like on top of my 70-pound bike, which is what those would, you know, those cheaper bikes. So you get the little bit better bike, and then you start to realize I can do like 20 miles on this beautiful trail and not even blink an eye, where running, that's a task. That's a lot of time, you know, but mountain biking, it's a fucking adventure, man.
Well, and so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe in the future I'll dabble with a couple events just to play with it. But I think it's a lot of fun to have, like you were talking about, being able to have a bike and being able to, what I love so much about it, because the next step for me is doing, I like getting out into the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that not only am I prepared with the materials to do that by having like a truck and the equipment to do that, but okay, let's take this a step further. What if the truck breaks down?
Right.
What if I'm 30 miles out in the middle of nowhere?
No cell service.
Oh yeah, a couple weeks ago, I had to drive 5 hours into the middle of nowhere to go meet a friend to go camp. So it's...
This is the trip before the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, or after the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, because you were leaving to go there.
Yeah, so stuff like that, to where it's like, okay, yes, the truck is great, but there may come a time where it breaks down.
Yeah.
Do I know how to fix the truck? If I can't fix the truck, I want to be able to bring my bike.
Right.
And know that,
you can scoot into town.
Cool. It's whatever. Like, it's just part of the journey. I hop on my bike and I ride for God knows how long. If I get a flat and I can't repair the flat, then I need to know that I'm able to hike.
Fuck.
And you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And that's what goes through my head when it comes to motivating my health is I want to know that I'm just prepared for stuff. And that way, because it's easy. If somebody's not, that's a very easy space for people to go into panic mode.
Right.
And you're in trouble.
Potentially do nothing and could possibly
die.
Yeah, die. I mean, it happens more often than people think. You know, there was a guy that disappeared off La Luz, and they found him hit the ground. La Luz is like a very popular trail right here in Albuquerque, and you would think you can throw a stone and hit Albuquerque from where that trail is. But it happens, you know.
You're still on a mountain.
Yeah, and that same scenario that you came up with the mountain bike, that still applies. I don't want to tangent too far because I know we're kind of closing this thing out, but I am trying to also look at some mountain biking races. So there's one coming up, and I'm going to share it with you after we get off the podcast, but a buddy of mine and I are going to try to go do it. It's a 50 miler, and it's two loops on a 25-mile track. My only plan is to really just go and participate. I don't really think that I'm going to try to like compete per se, because I don't train for that. And, you know, I've never been to this particular park, so it's going to be a ball, but road trip and the whole bit, you know, to be able to get to it and play with it and, you know, have the experience. But I'm also going to be doing I signed up this morning for the Run Rabbit Run podcast. Oh my God. Race, excuse me, which is in September of next year. So, never gone that far. And then I also got this bike thing coming up. So that's the direction that my mindset's going to go. And it's, I want to say, you know, preface this. I'm going to lean on you a little bit, Pat, because you're my boy, you know, and then we can, you know, go from that point where we can talk about more, and the coach's corners coming up, you know, kind of a thing. I think today's episode was a lot about, I feel like we're getting to a spot where we can kind of feel each other on different topics, you know? So I think today a lot of it was talking about being, what's the fucking word? Why am I not able to think of it?
Resilient?
Accountable.
Okay.
Oh my God. I wanted to call it accounting. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Accountable. This episode is a lot about being accountable, I think, but goods and bads, you know, and then also like trying to think about what to do with yourself now that the pandemic is apparently in still for the long haul. And I think having options at your disposal, which is what we've been touching on even in the last episode, but also being accountable in certain ways that, you know, for one, you can have a couple nights of Netflix, you can have the cookies.
Hell yeah.
But don't expect to hit your goals, you know, and then, you know, you're gonna hear about it from your coach or from your scale if you're so into the, you know, messing with the weight scales and things like that to keep your accountability. Do you have any more recommendations on that? Like maybe a tip and trick? I've tried the journals that you can buy from Amazon that, you know, it's a daily thing. I just don't do it enough. But I do try to meditate if I can. And then I do a stretching routine. So that's one of my big tips for anybody listening. Get a foam roller and use it daily. And even if you're not athletic in the least, I guarantee you there's going to be spots that you can't roll because it hurts because you don't ever do it. And you know, a lot of stretches that you can look up YouTube videos to do, but I think just a basic stretching routine can go miles in keeping somebody from getting injured. If you have to do anything strenuous, even for just a second, like twisting around, people hurt their backs. And a lot of times it's because they're just not malleable. They don't move. Mm-hmm. So I think a stretching routine's one that I think that people could stand on if, you know, as a takeaway from this episode, besides the other shiny gold that we put in here. But yeah, fucking accountability, bro. Like it's hard for all of us to keep it that way. I mean, I'm pretty bad when it comes to sleep. I don't have accountability with sleep. You know, that's an easy one. But what do you have to expand on for that, man?
Relative to the state of the world, I think the easiest thing that people can do, the two things that I would recommend people do would be just sit down and stretch, because we're living through, and I'm speaking from my own experience, one of the most stressful times in our lives. This is the most stressful.
And being stuck in your fucking house.
Well, that's what I mean. It's compounding. Right, yeah. Right. Like I just got done having probably one of the most difficult weeks I've ever had mentally in a long time.
No shit.
Oh, and it's just because you're at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I understand and I sympathize with people who depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff is a very real thing. And then this is just like you're put in a space where it's a breeding ground for things being even more difficult. So it's like, okay, I've got to stay home, which I understand it's the right thing to do, but it's like I'm having to limit my interaction with people. I can't just freely, working from home is all fun and games and stuff like that, but you need variety in your experience. And when you're at home for months on end, it can be tough. So just dealing with the stress of things, I think getting out and going for a walk if you can, or walking on your treadmill, I would highly recommend getting outside and walking, even if it's cold. Yeah. Like put some gear on, get some fresh air in some way, shape, or form, and just go for a walk, dude. Go for a walk, break up that habit, and then buy a foam roller or just stretch. Look up some videos online and stretch, because it's mind-blowing how your stressful state of being manifests itself and harbors itself in your body. Right. You know, your tight muscles, you're dealing with pain while you're stretching. Sure. A lot of that's a byproduct of the stress that you're going through. And I think taking time to stretch, decompress, get away from your phone, listen to some calming music, whatever it might be, light some sage, some Palo Santo wood, whatever your thing is, and just work on those two aspects to where, and not put harsh time constraints around doing them. If you can't do 10 minutes, like, okay, let's do 1 minute of stretching or meditation. Yeah. So I would recommend stretching and walking right now, especially with closures looming overhead. It's like, okay, we've just got to go to a place of what requires the minimal amount of equipment and the easiest entry into doing it. It's like, okay, we could stop this podcast right now and sit on the floor and stretch. It's not going to require anything.
Stretch while we're podcasting.
Yep.
Just saying.
Exactly.
Cool, man. Well, I think it's been an excellent episode. I think we could probably wrap up at this point. And then I know that, we've been leaning in the direction, but if anybody listening would like to have us talk about things, you guys can always reach Pat at aware_life. That's LIFEABQ. That's on Instagram. And then definitely reach out to People Pursuing Greatness podcast if you want to. But I feel like in the context of you and I doing this more continually, I think it would probably be more coming through your side, which totally makes sense. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I think that you would be the expert on said subject if it came to some sort of a question. So if you guys think of anything like that, accountability, stretching, even some basic workout routines, I mean, fucking anything. Yeah, I mean, anything. If it deals with your health or concerns your health in one way, shape, or form, just ask. Right. And that really, at the end of the day, I can't guarantee I'm always going to have the right answer, but I can guarantee that I'll get the right answer for you. I've got a network. So yeah. Well, you definitely are you're a cherished member of the people pursuing greatness alumni, man.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, dude.
I'm pumped for more to come.
Yeah, dude. And if you guys want to hear our previous episodes, you can go to ppgpodcast.com. Or of course you can find all the episodes wherever you're listening to this one. So I'm guessing iTunes, Spotify. The only thing I'm still not fucking on is Pandora. What's up, Pandora? I hope you're out there because I've been putting in my application. I don't know who listens to podcasts on Pandora though. Do you know? Mm-hmm. I've never heard of anybody.
I haven't listened to podcasts on Pandora. I've got a soft spot in my heart for Pandora because that was my first introduction to streaming music. And it just took me on these.
They were the ones that got the algorithm thing.
Yeah, they just really took me on these very unique rabbit trails musically. And I've discovered artists that I don't know that I would have found otherwise. Right. And it's just, so I still have a Pandora account for that reason.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So when I was in online school years ago, so like 09, 10, I was on unemployment and I would just all day basically be online typing papers and stuff. I actually used all of the 30 hours a month that you used to get for free Pandora streaming.
Sure.
And it cut me off one day. It's like, you need to start paying us. Right. I was like, fuck, I didn't think I could actually listen to all of it.
There was a time where it was just full, it was free without ads.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I remember that in college. It was really cool.
Well, there was a thing that Microsoft had, or it was MSN maybe, that was right before Pandora. And it was similar to that. It was like called Juke or something like that. I'm dropping the IT ball here. I should know what I'm talking about, but yeah, same kind of thing. It steered me into some places where I was like, who the fuck is it? And you go on a tangent, you find a discography and you're like, oh, in heaven, especially with metal. Cause metal is so not mainstream enough to where all of the band, like you can't go down the street and find, you'll maybe find 2 or 3 metalheads out of the 10 houses that you walk, I don't know, bad example, but out of a big group of people. But when you find like some metal rabbit hole that some fucking algorithm like Pandora or something like that takes you on, and you find bands, I'm like taking notes. I'm like, who is that? Fuck yeah. Know, and my likes on I use Google Music is like 3,000 deep from like 2011 when they started that service. Anyways, I don't know where the fuck we went with that, but our podcasts are everywhere. Podcasts are excellent to listen to when you're, quarantined. There's lots of episodes from this podcast, but there's a lot of them that Pat and I have done together. I think this is 3.
I think it might be more than that. I think this is 4.
Yeah, this is number 4. But there's, Stuff You Should Know is a really good one. I know only reason why I'm throwing them out is because to me, these are learning podcasts and these are the things I do. I listen to a lot of audiobooks to burn time. When I'm on down, like being quarantined like this, especially while I'm running. I'll burn through podcasts and then I get onto audiobooks. I just listened to an audiobook called In the Kingdom of Ice, and it's about a ship that got stuck in the ice in the 1880s and how these guys crossed sea ocean ice and dragged stuff and just things that are so much harder than a scenario we've ever seen at our level. And I think listening to other people's struggles is a really good way to pass the time.
Well, storytelling. Yeah, my go-to podcast is How I Built This with Guy Raz.
Yes, I think we talked about that. Yeah. And then there's Invisibilia, which is also a Guy Raz NPR, which is another one that I highly recommend. Those are great podcasts. Trying to think, Scott, what you got? You got any good podcasts to recommend? Nothing? Come on.
I listen to Kevin Smith's.
Kevin Smith's, yep. Yeah. That's
he talks about comic book stuff.
Yeah. Oh, cool. What's that one called?
Batman, right?
I can't remember. There's also Your Mom's House, which is a good comic one. I don't know, just throwing some stuff out there. But podcasts are a great way to expand your mind. Mountain bikes, there's a lot of mountain bike podcasts, a lot of running podcasts.
I haven't even touched or scratched the surface with that.
So maybe that's another podcast that we'll do. We'll talk about some more stuff that you can do that's maybe not outside oriented. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for listening. I appreciate you guys. Check out Pat at Aware Life ABQ, and of course PPG Podcast, and we'll catch you on the flip side.